hectic June with Brno and Aston to follow comes from Balaton Park, which sits around an hour's drive from bustling Budapest. Surrounded by the sunny slopes of the Balaton Highlands, picturesque lakeside towns and beaches galore, making a stunning summer holiday destination. Whose destiny is it to be the Sunday hero, though, in Hungary? It's time to race in MotoGP. First on the calendar, the Balaton Park circuit last August in 2025. It first opened its doors a couple of years ago in 2023, about 80 kilometres southwest of Budapest. A very tight and twisty layout. Talk about a contrast from the wide open high-speed circuits of Catalonia and Mugello. Our most recent visits, tight through turn 1 and 2, opens up through turn 4, good braking opportunity, good overtaking opportunity down into turn 5. The first of 3 chicanes takes you into the tight 9 and 10. Well, that completed through turn 15 and 16. Turn 1's really hard on the front end, so too is turn 5. 1 and 5, two of the best overtaking hotspots around this 4.08 kilometre layout. This was Marc Marquez on his way to a treble here last year on Marco Bezzecchi into that first corner. Well, our second visit to Balaton Park turned out to be an incredible sprint Saturday for reigning world champion Marc Marquez on pole position after a crash in the early part of Q2 yesterday for the 76th time in his MotoGP career. He would eventually go on to dominate the 13-lap event. Drama behind him as Fermin Aldeguer tried to find their way through on the fast-starting Marco Bezzecchi and Ralph Fernandez. But for the 18th time, he ties Jorge Martin's sprint-winning record. Marc Marquez taking his first victory since returning from recent double surgery on his right foot and his right shoulder. And now he's honing in on a double win here in Hungary. Is today the day that the factory Ducati star does win his 100th Grand Prix. He goes from pole position ahead of Pedro Acosta, who was second over the line in yesterday's sprint. Marco Bezzecchi increasing his world championship lead from 17 to 20 points coming into our race day 8 of 2026. Bezzecchi charging his way through from the second row of the grid in 6th place yesterday to claim just his second sprint podium finish of the campaign. Sunny skies, hot conditions, not a lot of breeze about as the world's fastest riders get set to tackle one of the tightest and slowest layouts of the campaign so far. And just like was the big questions of our first visit to Balaton last August, who on earth is going to be able to stop Marc Marquez from rounding out another pole position, sprint win and Grand Prix victory treble? 2/3 of that equation have already been completed by the 33-year-old Spaniard. He led from start to finish with a commanding victory in yesterday's sprint. And quite clearly, despite his pre-weekend assessment being, haven't got a chance of winning here on Sunday, well, not quite sure we believe him as Marc Marquez starts as the clear Pre-Grand Prix favourite, which will be lights out and underway in about 14 minutes or so time, in the company of Matt Burt, Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box, Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. Well, he did the business here in Balaton last August, Lewis. Pole position, dominated the sprint, leading every lap just as he did yesterday. Won the Grand Prix here last August. It was the last time, actually, Marc Marquez did claim a clean sweep in a Grand Prix weekend. It was a real platform, launching him to that 7th MotoGP world title. The treble on once again, Lewis, and it's clear he's going to take some stopping.
He generally doesn't blink in this kind of situation when he's taken pole position, when he's dominated the sprint in the manner he did yesterday. Many expect Marc Marquez to have the speed to win this Hungarian Grand Prix today. Does he have the physicality to win it? That perhaps is the big question mark hanging over the reigning world champion today. Of course, he has to go 26 laps and he's going to have to listen to his body. Potentially mistakes could creep in if fatigue takes over for Marc Marquez. So might not be the most comfortable a ride he's ever had at the front of a Grand Prix, but Marc Marquez certainly will take some dislodging from the front of the race.
This is him then launching away from that 76 MotoGP pole position. He said he was full focus. Nobody was going to get the better of Marquez on the brakes into that tricky, tight first right-hander. And that was it. Marc Marquez getting the whole shot. Within 2 or 3 laps, he was over 2 seconds clear of Pedro Acosta. And out of the final corner, he powers the factory Ducati. 18 sprint wins now, his 3rd of 2026. Not that there was any doubt about whether Marc Marquez, when close to full fitness, was going to be putting the factory Ducati back on the top step on sprint Saturdays. And well, any of those doubts were quashed, weren't they, emphatically yesterday by the Spanish superstar, who was always so good. 6 anti-clockwise circuits on the MotoGP calendar: Austin, here in Hungary, Sachsenring, Aragon, Phillip Island and Valencia, where Marc Marquez has basically made those circuits his own. 73 Grand Prix wins in the Premier class. Marc has collected 34 of those, almost 47%, nigh on half have been on anti-clockwise layouts. 9 wins at the Sachsenring, 7 wins at Aragon, 7 wins at Austin. Can he make it back-to-back wins in Balaton?
Yep, there you can see at the 57 Grand Prix he started on anti-clockwise circuits, he's won, as Matt mentioned, 34 of those. A 59% winning rate around anti-clockwise circuits. The first sector is almost entirely left, the first corner is right, and then you're left through 2, 3 and 4. And generally there, it's where Marc Marquez has been doing so much damage through the weekend. And it was by the end of that first sector of the sprint yesterday where Pedro Acosta already recognised that he wasn't going to be able to beat the world champion.
Well, while he fights his way back to full fitness after that recent double surgery to repair the damaged right foot he suffered from that horrible sprint high side in Le Mans, and then to correct the screw that was compressing on the nerve, the radial nerve of his right arm, Marc Marquez was just untouchable, wasn't he, yesterday? Eco mode on Friday as he built himself up into the weekend. Super sport mode yesterday to get himself to the sprint when he reckons he's going to need sport mode here this afternoon. Great start, wasn't he, by Marco Bezzecchi. Look at the factory Aprilia ride, the world championship leader making big progress. A lightning launch off the line once again by the factory Aprilia. He's on that road too with Digia and Pecco Bagnaia on the Ducati GP26s. He just motors past a pair of those, and then he's onto the inside of Fermin Aldeguer. This was a crucial move, this by Bez, because clearly behind him, he admitted himself, Aldeguer in particular had the better speed on the Gresini Ducati, but Aldeguer around this tight, twisted layout just could not find a way through. That could be a really important 7 points in the final reckoning, couldn't it, for Marco Bezzecchi? Just his 2nd sprint medal of the season. But he, as he attacked so brilliantly last weekend in Mugello, Lewis, in the Grand Prix, he defended quite impeccably yesterday, because it was Aldeguer and Ralph Hernandez that gave him a real good run for his money. Yeah,
for all the mistakes that Bezzecchi has made in sprints this year, he had to be mistake-free yesterday if he was going to take top spot or take a place on the podium at least yesterday. 3rd was indeed where he finished. 20 points now his advantage over Jorge Martin, who did make the odd mistake in the sprint yesterday and has also already made a mistake on this Grand Prix Sunday as Martin. This was yesterday when he found himself on the middle of the 3rd row, had a sprint long battle with Diogo Moreira. It's fair to say Moreira, who's a row behind him. Martin in the end would win that battle despite a trip through the escape road at the chicane of turns 9 and 10. This was it on the first lap of the race as he tried to get at the inside of Moreira straight across the escape road, had to drop a second, which certainly did stop him in his tracks. Got the move done eventually on the number 11, who made so many more admirers yesterday, did Moreira, in the Tito sprint. He is a growing force in MotoGP. In the end, it was 6th place for Jorge Martin. Far from a disaster in the sprint, but as mentioned, he's already started this Grand Prix Sunday with a fall in warm-up.
Not a disgrace. A 6th place in the sprint was still his lowest sprint finish of 2026 so far. And he has to get his qualifying sorted out, doesn't he, Jorge Martin? 3rd row in 5 of the last 6 Grand Prix. There was a pretty good fight yesterday between the 2 Prima Pramac Yamahas, good buddies of course. Toprak Razgatlioglu winning out in 13th place, just ahead of his teammate Jack Miller. I'd like to say the Aussie joins Jack right now. Jack and Jack, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody. Great to be joined by Jack ahead of this one. A top job on Friday to make what was going to be a challenging weekend that little bit easier. It looks as though it's going to be once again a big pack fight between you and the other Yamahas. What's going to be key to it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's basically part of the course this year. You know, we're racing each other, but no, thankfully yesterday we were able to finish with a couple other manufacturers behind us as well. So I mean, get away to a decent start. Like you said, job was done on Friday. We were happy with making it straight through. Makes the weekend a lot easier. We'll see what we can do now. Sort of trying to toss up what we do with the tyres. Kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you know what I mean. But no, looking forward to a long, tight, technical, you know, hard to pass track. So getting away off the line is going to be crucial.
Those following your social media will have seen that you're not the only Miller with some talent in the family. Little daughter Pip, it was singing Frozen all throughout the night. When you try and bury your head beneath the bubble, you're just going to have Let It Go ringing throughout your head.
Yeah. Got a few different tunes to drown it out. No, she definitely likes to put on a bit of a performance, much like someone else I know.
Good luck today, Jack.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thanks as always to Jack Miller, Jack and Jack's down there on the grid. It was an equal best sprint so far this season for the Australian. As he said, probably expecting another Inter Iwata factory battle this afternoon. It was a shocker yesterday for the factory Yamaha team. Fabio Quartararo's worst sprint finish since Catalunya 3 years ago. There's only been a couple of occasions previously where Quartararo's finished low. Alex Rins had his worst ever sprint. Wakey, wakey is the message as Pedro Acosta shouts out to his factory KTM crew. He'll be hoping to sing himself hoarse with his first ever MotoGP celebrations in what, about an hour and a quarter's time. 26 MotoGP podiums now for Acosta, 14 in sprints, 12 in Grand Prix, but still seeking that first win on a main race day Sunday.
Does he have the speed? Does he have the potential to win this Grand Prix? Is it really going to be in his control? Is Pedro going to have to rely on a mistake or potentially some late race fatigue from Marquez to get on terms? The best opportunity that Pedro clearly will have today to try and deny Marquez a century of Grand Prix wins in all classes is at the start of the Grand Prix. Surely Pedro is going to have to take some risks if he gets a good enough start to get alongside Marquez into that first corner. Track position is key around this Balaton Park circuit.
Diogo Moreira, the reigning Moto2 world champion, pole position in Moto2 right here in Balaton last year. His star already starting to shine very bright in the MotoGP World Championship this year. The 22-year-old Brazilian, 7th yesterday in the sprint. Best sprint so far of the campaign for the pro Honda LCR rider. And just as he did last weekend over in Mugello, he was by far the standout Honda rider on the MotoGP grid. Had a couple of top 10s last time out, didn't he? In Mugello, 10th in the sprint, just missing out on the point scoring places, but an excellent ride into the top 10 in the main Grand Prix. Big things, a big future lies ahead for the Brazilian.
Well, we saw in Mugello a week ago when he got himself up into 3rd on the first lap of the sprint. The floor then got pulled out from underneath him and he plummeted down the order later on in the sprint. There were no signs of that yesterday. He very much kept Jorge Martin here on screen in sight at the end of the sprint. Moreira coming across the line for his best Saturday result so far in 7th place. This is on the back of a double top 10 in Mugello last weekend, and he is once again Honda's best bet of a result here this afternoon.
What about Jorge Martin? 4 double podiums so far this season, including last time out in what was a truly unforgettable weekend for Aprilia. What a weekend they had in Mugello, setting a new all-time top speed record, a new all-time lap record. The first ever Grand Prix victory in Mugello, first ever front row lockout. A weekend that Aprilia and Marco Bezzecchi in particular are not going to forget. Sprint result yesterday, 13th for Toprak Razgatlioglu, was his best sprint finish. He was the top Yamaha over the line in 13th place, just over 14 seconds back of Marc Marquez at the checker flag. So once again the Yamaha's giving up about a second a lap compared to the front running pace. And Raul Fernandez, well, he was close close but no cigar in that 13-lap sprint yesterday. Did all he could to try and pressure Marco Bezzecchi into a mistake, but just coming up short in 4th place. As that young Ralph Fernandez fan was got a meet and greet yesterday with his hero. Got a special set of gloves. I think the gloves that Ralph Fernandez was wearing in the opening Grand Prix of the season in Buram. A cherished memento for that young fan.
I'm going to assume those Estrella Galicias are not for him, but either way, he got the experience of a lifetime yesterday to meet Ralph Fernandez. Ralph Fernandez certainly enjoying that support in a key phase of Ralph Fernandez's season as he tries to secure a place on the grid for next season. Taking advantage yesterday of that battle ahead of him between Bezzecchi and Fermin Aldeguer. Aldeguer losing the front momentarily through the chicane of 9 and 10, which allowed Fernandez to secure that 4th place.
Fabio Quartararo is having a miserable time right now, isn't he, on the factory Yamaha. I don't think 2026 should end soon enough for the 27-year-old Frenchman. Struggling down to 17th place yesterday in that sprint. 18th he was over the line in the Italian Grand Prix last weekend. His equal worst finish in the MotoGP World Championship. 3rd time this year Quartararo has finished outside of the point scoring places. He's the only rider that's finished all 8 sprints and 7 Grand Prix so far this season, but as a front-running force, we haven't really seen too much of the 2021 world champion.
We didn't see a great deal of Pecco Bagnaia yesterday, it's fair to say, as you take a look at some of the updates and some of the aerodynamic tweaks that they've made on his particular Ducati so far through this season, as they constantly strive to move the game on from a technological point of view. Aprilia have certainly pushed them in that respect so far this season. Bagnaia qualified well, 5th on the grid, but he found himself on the wrong side of the racetrack, on the outside of a defensive Fermin Aldeguer, who fought hard to keep Bagnaia behind him, ended up pushing both of them wide, so Bagnaia was already down in the lower reaches of the top 10 by the end of the 1st lap in the sprint yesterday. And of course, around a circuit such as this, so difficult to recover from a poor 1st lap. Bagnaia just the 1 point yesterday, which did at least keep his 100% scoring record on a Saturday intact.
Can he go for 3 podiums in a row for the first time in over a year since Austin, Qatar and Jerez at the start of 2025? Who'd have thought we'd be saying that about the 29-year-old Italian who used to reel off top 3 finishes like he was shelling peas, didn't he, Pecco Bagnaia? 29-year-old Italian, back-to-back podiums for the first time in 9 a year since Assen and the Sachsenring last year. What can he do? Friday he was all out of sorts, struggling with sliding and movement, a lack of stability off throttle with the rear of that factory Ducati, particularly on some of the hard acceleration zones out of turns 4 and the final corner, turn 17. We'll keep a close eye on Bagnaia. 9th he was in the Grand Prix last year, having to serve a long lap penalty for a shortcut.
It's not been an enjoyable weekend so far for Maverick Vinales. He was 19th in the sprint yesterday, and I guess slightly concerning messages coming from Maverick yesterday, saying that I still need to understand how to ride this bike, which is I guess not something you'd expect someone to be saying a year and a half into their stint with KTM. But of course Maverick has had his physical issues so far this season, which do put his results into a little bit of context.
Well, it's 10 years and a full decade, as you saw on screens there, since the factory Ducati team went winless in the opening 7 Grand Prix of the campaign. The last time the Red Crew were celebrating in Parc Fermé on a Sunday was a Sunday that will stick in the memories for a long time at Borgo Panigale, as Marc Marquez in Japan was crowned world champion in MotoGP for the 7th time. But Pecco Bagnaia's victory, his double victory in that Motegi Grand Prix, was the last time the factory Ducati team were victorious. 12 races to go, and it's 2016. Wow, what a stat that is. 2016, the last time the factory Ducati team did not win one of our opening 7 Grand Prix. A win today, though, for Marc Marquez or Pecco Bagnaia would be the 100th for the factory Ducati squad, which would be quite a nice marriage of numbers as Marc Marquez chases his personal 100th Grand Prix success.
They've been brought up on a diet of winning over the last decade, haven't they? Their famine potentially could end today. Ayagura's 79 bike, the Aprilia, of course, now in its new title-sponsored livery, set to go for this Hungarian Grand Prix. Agura, once again, going from outside the front 3 rows of the grid. He starts 10th and hoping to have a little bit better fortune on the first lap than he did yesterday, which put paid to any hopes he had of World Championship points.
Pace to burn once again, though, for Agura. Once again, he was lightning on circuit, second fastest rider at the end of that sprint in terms of fastest lap times. Only Marc Marquez threw in a faster lap than Agura in that sprint yesterday, but once again, paying dearly for a pretty average performance in qualifying. 10th on the grid. Got a great record, though, so far this season on Sundays. Fought his way through into the top 5 in 5 of the opening 7 Grand Prix. Had a tough first experience here in Balaton last year, did Agura-san. 11th in the sprint, which was where he finished yesterday. And, of course, he was 15th in the Grand Prix. Just 1 point across the whole of the weekend. There's the helicopter shot there. Some contrast, isn't it, as mentioned, from the high-speed, fast and flowing Montmeló circuit in Barcelona, and in particular the fastest track in Grand Prix history at Mugello last weekend, where the top speeds were almost 370 kilometres an hour. Something of a stark contrast here this weekend in Balaton, where the fastest motorcycles in Grand Prix history are barely nudging over 300 kilometres an hour.
And it's a contrast that it's fair to argue that the Aprilias haven't necessarily enjoyed so far this year. They came so close to a podium lockout again, didn't they, in Mugello, with Agura chasing down Pecco Bagnaia on the last lap to try and join Bezzecchi and Martin on the podium. I think Aprilia have recognised this one isn't necessarily their weekend, even if they expect to be stronger on the medium rear tyre, which is likely to be the preferred pick in the Grand Prix this afternoon after everyone sprinted on the soft yesterday. Of course, another crucial first corner coming up for Bezzecchi as he tries to lift himself up the order.
4 wins so far this year for the World Championship leader. 6 wins in the last 9 Grand Prix. 4 wins already in the opening 7 Grand Prix. There's a PB tally in the Premier class for Bezzecchi. He won 3 times in 2023. He won 3 times last season. So that gives you a clear indicator of already what a sensational campaign Marco Bezzecchi and the factory Aprilia squad are producing. He did qualify on the front row of the grid here last year, 7th in the sprint. Certainly was better yesterday inside the top 3. And he was 3rd in the main Grand Prix. Had nothing for Marc Marquez and Pedro Acosta. I think this Balaton Park Grand Prix last year was around that time where Marco Bezzecchi really did start to stand up and show that he was going to pose the main opposition in the second half of last year's campaign to dominant world champion Marc Marquez.
Yeah, it came hot on the heels of Austria, where he led for the first half of the racing. We then went from here over to Barcelona and Misano, where of course Bezzecchi won the sprint and then pushed Marc Marquez all the way in the Grand Prix itself. What a 12 months it has been for Marco Bezzecchi and the factory Aprilia team. 20 points is Bezzecchi's lead in the World Championship, so it's unlikely that he will lose the World Championship lead today. But on a weekend where once again Martin has been ever so slightly on his back foot, can Bezzecchi take full advantage to strengthen his position at the top of the World Championship as we head into a crucial phase of the season?
Just love that. I mean, on the sighting lap, Bez is getting his elbow down pretty much through the final chicane. I mean, Marco Bezzecchi's sighting lap in Balaton will be a darn sight quicker than most people's fastest laps here around this Grand Prix of Hungary circuit. Bez always...
soon you will be the number 1, it said on that banner. Someone who's hoping to change that is Jorge Martin, who's on the grid with Jack.
Yeah, great to be joined by Jorge. So often in 2026, Jorge, we've seen some pretty special Sunday comebacks from you in the Aprilias. Are we going to be treated to more of the same today?
Yeah, well, I hope for sure. I will try to put a strong pace. I have to be clever. It's not our best weekend so far, but I think still we can remediate with a solid result. So it's a bit the target. Let's try to do a great start. This is the beginning, and then step by step, the race is very long. I will try to come back.
Good luck, have fun.
Thank you.
He had a belting ride here last year, didn't he, Jorge Martin? Thanks very much, Jack, and thanks to the 2024 World Champion, 16th to 4th in Balaton last August was Martin. He didn't get the memo about it being hard to overtake around this Grand Prix of Hungary venue. 2nd in Goiânia, 2nd in Texas, the fantastic win in Le Mans, and then 2nd most recently last time out in Mugello. He has found his top 3 touch once again, hasn't he, Jorge Martin? That's why he's only 20 points behind Bezzecchi going into this Hungarian round, as Marc Marquez there on course for what would be his 9th pole position, sprint win and Grand Prix win treble. He fires away from pole.
Here's the grid. Marc Marquez, Pedro Acosta and Fermin Aldeguer is your front row, and the initial information is that they're all going for the soft rear tyre. Certainly Marquez and Acosta ran that in warm-up this morning. To Gian Antonio fourth from Bagnaia, who is at the moment heading for the medium rear. Benteke starts sixth on the soft. Fernandez seventh from Jorge Martin, and Luca Marini, two others on the medium rear tyre. Certainly appears to be a big split in terms of the tyre strategy. Ayagura lines up 10th from Diogo Moreira and Jack Miller. Joan Mir, Enea Bastianini and Fabio Quartararo are together on row 5. On row 6 we find the very impressive Iker Lecuona, 16th for the Gresini Ducati team. We're expecting his he's replacing Alex Marquez back in Brno. Brad Binder and Toprak join him on the 6th row. Frankie Morbidelli, Alex Rins and Maverick Vinales on row 7, with the grid completed by a Balaton Park debutant. First visit here for Cal Crutchlow.
Yeah, Michelin did report yesterday tyre wear not an issue. Very low here at Balaton Park. So the information coming out from Piero Taramasso's media debrief last night was riders who want to complete the distance on the soft rears, no problem. They will go the distance. I think a few riders yesterday were saying they didn't go for the medium in the sprint just because it takes sort of 4 or 5 laps to really come in and really get up to full working temperature. Interesting though to see quite a big split, as I saw from that grid graphic. Let's go and get some tyre info from down on the grid though with Jack.
Yeah, there's going to be some very late changes on the grid. There's a lot of games been played here. As you can just see on the screen then, there are tyres being thrown left, right and centre. As it stands currently, 60% of the grid opting for the softer option rear tyre, 40% going for the medium option rear tyre, but that could all change. There's going to be some very last minute calls here. As we saw yesterday, as the riders told us, the opening 3 or 4 laps of the race, there's a big advantage of the soft, but then of course you've got to manage it in those final 4 to 5 laps. We know how important track position is here. Our rider's going to be willing to give up the advantage you have at the medium at the end of the race to make sure you get track position at the start with that soft rear tyre. It's going to be fascinating to see who goes with what.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Right on cue, we've seen Michelin engineers hovering around the factory Ducatis. This was the exact quote released by Michelin Motorsport boss Piero Taramasso last night. Tyre wear is low here at Balaton Park. Tomorrow, as in today's Grand Prix, it will be possible for riders who wish to do so to complete the 26 laps of the Grand Prix on soft tyres at the rear. It will all depend on each rider's strategy, but the option is there. That was the view from Michelin here in Balaton Park last year. What are the Trackhouse riders going to go forward? Ralph Fernandez and Ayagura look to charge through the field. Let's get the thoughts of Davide Bribio at the box for Jack.
Yeah, great to be joined by Davide. We were just saying it seems like it's going to be one of those days 50-50 when it looks to the rear option rear tyre. At the moment, what are Raul and I leaning towards, and why have they made that decision?
Yeah, it's a decision about the tire. At the moment, we like the soft tire. I know it's a little bit different choice from the majority, but the both rider at the moment, we are convinced about the soft tire. Let's see if we confirm until the last minute, but looks like it. Now, you know, it's a time where you try to understand what the others are doing, but looks like the majority is going in medium. Let's see. I mean, we think it's not, there's no wrong choice somehow. It's a different plus and minus, so you have to put together and take a decision.
What are the chances of Raul and I today? Raul with a great ride in the sprint yesterday. So often we see I make progress through the field on a Sunday, but we saw just how difficult it is to overtake here. So what are their chances?
Yeah, no, I think we have a chance. Yesterday I had a problem at the start. He lost a lot of position on turn 4. So if we are able to keep some position or even improve a little bit, then we wait for the high final race, hopefully, even if it's the soft. So quite challenging, quite interesting to see what we can do by the end, maybe with a soft tire compared to the other on a medium. It's very good on management, but today he has to be very good. He has to be as usual. So that's it, interesting.
Absolutely. Good luck, Davide.
Thank you, bye.
Well, we certainly hope it's going to be an interesting Grand Prix of Hungary, because I think it is fair to say that yesterday's sprint didn't quite live up to our pre-sprint expectations. That, of course, was thanks to the utter brilliance and the utter dominance of world champion Marc Marquez. So we heard it there, Trackhouse, both Raul Fernandez and Niagara, their preference, they're favouring the soft. We'll keep a close eye. Could be a real tactical, strategic race, this one coming up.
This is the man who led the field on a merry dance yesterday. New tyre choice, so Marc Marquez would appear to have changed from the soft rear. That tyre you saw being hastily brought onto the grid by the factory Ducati team clearly was a medium rear tyre to be fitted into Marc Marquez. Is that potentially just a sign of his confidence that he doesn't feel he needs the benefit of the soft rear tyre in those early stages? But does that potentially lead Pedro Acosta to gamble on the soft to try and seize the early initiative from Marc?
So Marco Bezzecchi getting himself focused and in the zone, as you can see from the clock underneath the gantry there on the grid. We are under 15 minutes away from the start of round 8. Yeah, the crowd enjoying the local dance ensemble before we get ready for the grid ceremony. And now then, Pedro Acosta, he was second in yesterday's sprint to Marc Marquez. He was second in last year's Grand Prix to Marc Marquez. Can he better and topple the 93 this afternoon? Let's get the thoughts of his crew chief, Paul Trevathan, with Jack.
Yeah, that's the big question, Bertie. A great ride by Pedro yesterday. Just firstly, Paul, soft rear, medium rear, it looks like the big question with people taking different options and different plans.
Yeah, to be honest, they've been really, really close. You know, it's all more about the warm-up and maybe some stability. So it depends on which way you're suffering, you know. So I think we stick with the choice we had yesterday and we go for it.
Marc going for the medium. Does that mean in those opening laps an opportunity to attack?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've seen the medium take a few laps to come up, you know. It's all about how they can bring this tyre up on the warm-up lap and see how we go from there.
In terms of the battle itself, obviously, Pedro is out here to fight for victory. From what he saw yesterday, do you think you can close the gap to Marc?
Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit caught out at the beginning of the race. You know, Marc's pace was fantastic at the very start of the race. You know, with the wind changes and some stuff, he struggled a little bit to make his markers, and then once he settled down, he was fine. So it's all about getting that feeling now at the beginning of the race and be able to push from the beginning.
Good luck, Paul. Have a good one.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Pedro Acosta and the factory KTM team then sticking with their guns. They're going medium front, soft rear, just as was their pick in yesterday's sprint. Thanks as always, Jack. Thanks to Acosta's crew chief, Paul Trevathan. There's lots of rubber wrapped in tyre warmers being swapped throughout this MotoGP grid. Just some late discussions here going on between Marco Bezzecchi and his crew chief Francesco Venturato. Are they potentially pondering a late switch? Acosta, though, got to go for Anthony Lewis. Go for broke. He's going to stick to with the soft rear tyre, see if he can make it work early on, and then keep all comers at bay.
Yeah, and with teams no doubt watching what each other are doing, so once they've seen the information that Marc Marquez has switched over to the medium, surely that makes Pedro Acosta's mind up that he's got to go the other way and try and attack Marc Marquez at a point where he could potentially be vulnerable in terms of the grip from his rear tyre, with Marc Marquez also potentially likely to tyre late on. Maybe it's important to get ahead of him and force Marc Marquez to go on the attack. From Aprilia's point of view, well, generally in Grand Prix this season, the softest rear tyre available, they've not necessarily had the ultimate performance. We've seen sprints largely won by Ducatis, but can Aprilia strike back? Can Bezzecchi match or better his podium from yesterday? Paolo Bonoras with Jack.
Yeah, so often, as I said to Jorge just a few moments ago, we've seen Sunday comebacks from Aprilia. No matter where they are on the grid, you always seem to find pace, Paolo, but this place in particular hasn't been easy for you. Talk us through the rear tyre choice. It's going to be an interesting one, and the chances of both guys.
Absolutely, Jack. The key point here is to understand which will be the correct tyre, for sure. Both the soft and the medium could achieve the maximum lap of the long distance race, for sure. It is not a matter of wear. It is a matter of feeling in the last part of the race. It is necessary to manage, if you choose the soft, it's necessary to manage very carefully in the first part, but then probably you can have some more grip. But it's necessary to understand. It is not easy. To be fully honest with you, we are now still evaluating for each the 4 rider we have, which is the best option.
Thanks, Paolo. Good luck.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks, as always, to Aprilia boss, Paolo Bonoras. Do you go medium? Do you go soft? That's the big call, isn't it? Coming into this 26-lap Grand Prix of Hungary. There is the Hungarian national flag flying proudly. This just the 4th ever Grand Prix of Hungary. First one back in 1990. We're back here in 1992, and we had to wait 33 years to make a return to Balaton Park in 2025. Our first 2 visits to this part of Europe came at the Hungaroring. Lots of talk, we might be back there as early as 2027 then. As a proud moment for Hungary. That helicopter has been performing some fairly bigger stunt shows throughout this weekend. Crowd then on their feet. Are they about to witness Marc Marquez claim his 100th Grand Prix victory? Will it be the factory Ducati team's 100th Grand Prix victory? Can Pedro Acosta finally break his winning duck in the MotoGP World Championship? That's all coming up in about 10 minutes time, but we will take a short pause here in the commentary box for the national anthem of Hungary.
The Hungarian national anthem, beautifully performed. Next, we race with 26 laps ahead of us around this technical Balaton Park circuit. A test of your skill, a test of your concentration with the chicanes coming at you quickly. So difficult to nail the perfect lap, as Jack Miller said on Friday afternoon. Well, 26 nigh on perfect laps are going to be required if you're going to collect 25 points and Grand Prix victory. Potentially awaiting at the end of it all for Marc Marquez a 100th Grand Prix victory. Is Pedro Acosta potentially going to deny him that century and potentially claim his first in the Premier class from the middle of the front row this afternoon?
Well, earlier on today we had our 300th Moto2 Grand Prix in history, and if Fabio Di Gianantonio repeats his success of Catalunya easily, we'll have our 300th MotoGP success for Italy. Well then, can there be another Balaton treble in the making for Marc Marquez? Let's get some thoughts from the boss, Davide Tollozzi with Jack.
Yeah, huge 45 minutes ahead for Marc Marquez after his sprint win yesterday. What's going to be key to this race, Davide? We've seen some last-minute changes for the rear tyre on the grid, but looks like Marc going with medium. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the last decision. There are some doubts because nobody knows which tire will be the best, but anyway, each one of us, all the riders makes his own choice, and we will see only in the end of the race who's take the best decision. But anyway, now we are worried only to the body side of Marc, because we don't know what it will be his reaction for this long race.
Pedro going with the soft rear, it sounds like, for the moment. How much of a concern is that? He's clearly going to try and attack in those first 3 laps.
Yeah, sure. After yesterday, Pedro realized that he need to attack in the beginning of the race, but this is kind of strategy that each rider have, each one have his own, though. So we'll see, we'll see.
Thanks, Davide. Good luck.
Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks to Ducati boss Davide Todozzi. There's some big calls being made right down there on that Balaton Park grid, particularly involving our top 2 in the World Championship. Marco Bezzecchi has opted to switch. He's gone from the soft rear tyre up to the harder option, the medium compound. Vice versa, the opposite. Jorge Martin, his closest championship rival, 20 points splitting the pair of them from the Inawali factory going into this Chapter 8 of 2026. Martin has copied Acosta. He has gone down from the medium to the soft rear tyre. These are big calls.
Yes, and we also saw Fermin Aldeguer and Fabio Gianantonio have gone from soft to medium, so they're going the same route as Marc Marquez, so we'll get full confirmation around about the time the warm-up lap gets underway, but that would leave Pedro Acosta as the sole rider, I make it, on the front 2 rows of the grid, who will be on the soft rear tyre unless he changes, and surely with the incentive of the early lead and chasing a first MotoGP victory, surely the big incentive for Acosta is to go bold and go for the soft.
We've said, well, we've heard from Michelin. They say that there is no durability issues, no endurance issues or concerns with that soft rear tyre, which has been an issue for KTM over the last 18 months or so. They've just run out of grip in the crucial late stages. It's been a real bugbear of Acosta and the Austrian factory recently. They've been improving in that area, but Acosta then on the soft. Marc Marquez, 104th time in his Grand Prix career. He starts from pole position, 76 times in MotoGP. 99 Grand Prix wins. He's been stuck on that 99 since Misano last year. Of course, it was pretty much to the day 1 year, well, 16 years ago now, since his winning journey started in the MotoGP World Championship when he was victorious in the Mugello 125cc race back in 2010. 5 minutes we are then away from the start of this Grand Prix of Hungary in 2026. As soon as we have the bang up to date latest information on the tyre picks from Michelin, we will bring it to you live here in the commentary box. But it certainly looks like, as he goes through his regular fist-bumping routine, Acosta on that front row on the soft rear.
Yeah, it's around about a 300-metre run down to that first corner. How much will be decided in that chase to turn 1?
So Acosta is the outlier then on that front row. First front row start of the campaign for Fermin Aldeguer. He's gone medium on the Michelin tyres. Acosta then second on the grid. Can he win for the first time in MotoGP? And can Marc Marquez win for the 100th time in his Grand Prix career? The world champion on pole. Well, the reigning world champion factory